There we go. Okay, well, I want to welcome everyone to the October Seminary Certification Cohort Gathering Call. I'm Sarah Macias, and Abby Mohop, co-director of GSI, is also on the call with me. I have a special guest that Abby is going to introduce as we're going to have a focused conversation on the section in our certification standards which is pertaining to food services. For those of you that are familiar with the standards, and those of you on your green teams are familiar with that document, it's section D.1, food services. Sarah King is our guest speaker again, that I'm letting you know the name, but Abby is going to more fully introduce. Sarah King and I are both joining you from Baylor University in Waco because we are participating in the Stewardship of Creation Symposium, which started this afternoon and will be held over the next couple of days. So that's a lot of good speakers here already. We just ran into each other because, oh my gosh, oh, you're coming to the same session I am. You know, fancy meeting you here. So, and we're also grateful to Baylor for making this space available. We are in Dr. Beverly Gaventa's office while she is on sabbatical. So they're very hospitable here in Waco, and we're grateful to that. The first about 30 minutes, we're going to have time to discuss food services with our guest speaker. And then we're looking forward to hearing a report from Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary. I think Ella is joining us on their green team, so she'll come in with a report. And then the last portion of our call before we sign off will be an opportunity to go around with any announcements. So anything else, Abby, before you introduce our speaker?
Yep. Just a reminder that if you're not speaking, to keep yourself on mute. You can unmute yourself at any time to ask questions or share a comment. You can also leave a note or a question in the chat box. And also, I'll just say that I'm in the same room as Dennis Testerman.
Hey, Dennis.
We're both at a conference on Presbyterians and climate change. So today is a day about connecting with people who are on the journey working together. So let me introduce you to Sarah Windsor King. She's the director of CreatureKind, and she is based out of Oregon, Portland, right? No.
Portland is far too big for me. I live in Eugene.
Eugene.
Yeah.
Place matters. Sarah is from Eugene, Oregon. And she's going to talk with us about food and Christian theology and how those things interact. We'll also be talking with us about the standards that we have and how to live into those standards in a way that's just and sustainable. I'm really grateful that you're with us, Sarah. I'm really grateful to call you friend and colleague. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and expertise with us today.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's so fun. I got to see Abby in person a couple of weeks ago, and I got to meet Sarah in person for the first time today. So
we're real people.
Yeah, no, you're not just heads in a screen. It's very exciting. I will take a few minutes to talk about, I had to take my glasses off because now I need something to gesture with. To talk about CreatureKind, the project that I work on, and how we work, and then specifically how we work in food policy, which is what we're talking about today. So I'm the co-director of CreatureKind. We started about 3 years ago. My co-director, David Clough, is a British ethicist who wrote a systematic theology called On Animals. And I read that as part of my seminary work and was so thrilled that there was an ethicist who really was paying careful attention to animals. So I asked him how I could help him, and we made CreatureKind as a result. We primarily focus our work in North America and in the United Kingdom, just because that is where we are at the moment. And we work in three main areas: food policy, which I'll save for last. We want to help support Christian animal advocates, folks who are often kind of the only person in their congregation or community that sort of seem to care about animal issues and often meet resistance to bringing up those conversations. We want to give them a little network of support. And we want to really equip people for conversation and for action. This is an exception. This conference that we're at is kind of an exception because there are a couple, at least, presentations at a conference on creation care at a Christian university that directly address animals. But that is a change. That is a change. This has not historically been the reality. For a long time, animals weren't really on the agenda, either in creation care conversations or just in the general ecclesial conversations of the church. We've kind of overlooked them for a variety of reasons that we don't need to get into. But we think having conversations about animals is important. We may come to different conclusions about what our actions should be as a result, but they should definitely be part of our conversations. They're a huge part of God's creation. There are a bajillion really good biblical reasons why we should care about animals. The welfare of animals is also connected to the welfare of human beings and the welfare of the rest of the natural environment. So that's kind of our premise. We work in a really big tent strategy. Like we have a big tent. We want to talk to people and have the conversation about animals, no matter where they are theologically along the spectrum of care. We don't want to just talk to Christian vegans. Christian vegans are great, and I am one of them. But there's not one path towards this, towards the goal of being better stewards of God's creatures. There's not one way to do that. There's not one set of set of rules that you have to follow, right? So we want to be in conversation with individuals and institutions wherever they are at. So food policy is our one of our main focuses. I've started to think about it like this. We know that animals matter. And it's a whole 20-minute presentation on why animals matter. So we can talk about why, but for the moment, we're going to take that as a given that animals matter. Factory farming, which is the way that we interact with the most number of animals, right? Worldwide, we kill billions of animals, of land animals, and then trillions of sea animals for food each year. That is massively more animals than in any other way that we use them or interact with them. And most of that is through factory farms, which are terrible for the environment, really, really bad for the people who work in them, who are abused, employees especially, and really bad for animals, arguably. So if we think that animals matter, the vast majority of animals are, the vast majority of the way that we interact with animals are through factory farms. And we should think about how we can extract ourselves from the factory farming system. And it's not an easy thing because that is how the vast majority of animal products are produced for human consumption, right? So we start off knowing that this may be, this is not necessarily something that is going to be an easy peasy thing, but there are steps that we can take. And the two, we think, good first steps are to reduce our overall consumption of animal products and to improve the sourcing of the animal products that we do consume, right? So to try as best as we can to extract ourselves from the factory farming process. And then when we do purchase animal products for consumption, to support farms and farmers who are really trying to do it right. And there are a lot of those people, and they are struggling against a massive industrial system. But they treat their workers better, they treat the animals better, they're better for the land, and they, let's support them when we can, is what I'm saying. And then we want to talk about why that's important, which goes back to the conversations, right? So our basic sort of approach with food policy is to talk with schools. And we're looking at schools because Christian schools are places where, seminaries in particular, are places where, the ideas about what it means to be a Christian in the world are formed, right? We're not just talking theory. Every theory that we learn about in the classroom has a practical application, right? Like the Trinity. It's not, the Trinity is I learned about the Trinity in seminary, and it blew my mind because I thought the Trinity, I didn't get it before, and now I get it, and I'm so excited. But the Trinitarian God tells us about what it's like to live in community, for one, right? So this is an area where everybody eats. Some people eat way more than others, which is another whole other side of the conversation that we can have, right? About food insecurity and how factory farming contributes to that. But everyone eats. What we eat says something about who we are. And if we can, raise this conversation, if we can help equip our church leaders to raise these conversations in their congregations, that starts in seminary. So we think seminaries are a particularly important place to be having the conversation and to be making these kinds of changes. So that the whole, the church should be leading on this issue. And right now it's really not. Right now it's sort of the conversation about animal rights is too often seen as a secular conversation or a liberal one. And we have such a great history and such great theology that supports our taking action on behalf of animals, that really points to, the promise of a reconciled creation of a peaceable kingdom. So let's do that. Let's use the resources that we have to have the conversations. And then it flew out of my brain, but I was going to say, the other reason that we think institutions are an important place to have this conversation is because oftentimes, an individual may or may not be able to make great changes in their personal lives, right? An individual who's working 3 jobs at minimum wage just to put food on the table may not have the bandwidth or money or time to think really carefully about, what kind of food they're eating. But an institution, as a group of people, right? Institutions have put solar panels on their roofs. They've greened their buildings the best they can. They've come together to reduce food waste. They started composting and recycling programs. Institutions, people coming together, have the power and ability to make changes that are really, really impactful, but that don't place unnecessary burdens on any one particular individual, right? So we can come together and practice this as a community. Like we can practice eating more plant-based, carrots have feelings, more plant-based meals as a community. And we can practice as a community supporting farmers who are really trying to honor the land and honor God's creatures without expecting any one individual in the community to be able to afford $5 for a dozen eggs, right? I can't tell what time it is. I don't know, but I feel it's okay to stop talking now.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
We provided some questions in the email that was sent to each of you for you to think about ahead of this call, and Abby is going to remind us in a bit what some of those questions are. But before we jump into some of those, does anyone have any feedback or questions pertaining specifically to anything that Sarah just spoke about? And we do want to hear at some point as far as what you are doing and what challenges and obstacles you're facing so that we can help each other in this direction. So, Abby,
can I say something?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry. Hi, it's Taliesin. Hey, Sarah, I don't know if you remember me.
Hi, of course.
Hi.
He's sweeter. I love you. I will
oh my gosh.
Ever.
Well, it is really nice to see you, and I don't know when I'll get to see you again. I hope it's soon. But
I'll be there this year.
Yeah, I'm planning to go. Okay, awesome. I'm just, always happy to see you. So the only thing I was going to sort of add to what you said was that a lot of people don't realize that meat is addictive. And it's very helpful to understand that when you're trying to talk to people about meat and industrial agriculture, because when you understand that, then it helps understand people's reactions when you start criticizing something that their body is actually addicted to. It's kind of like asking people to give up carrots is a very different thing from asking people to cut back on meat or give up meat. You get a really different reaction, right? And I read a book that talked about this. There's a chemical compound in meat that's similar to what's in caffeine and chocolate. It's a stimulant in your brain. And so when you ask people to give up coffee or chocolate or meat, you get a sort of similar reaction from people, right? And I just find, like, from a compassion perspective, that that's helpful, that people don't mean to be so resistant. It's actually chemical. Like, they're addicted. And I noticed myself when I gave up meat that over time I didn't care so much anymore. But at the time when I was eating it all the time, I couldn't imagine giving it up. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because it kind of changes the way I have conversations with people and the way approaches that I use to try to help them understand it. Nobody likes to think that they're addicted to things and that they don't have control over the choices that they're making, whether it's sugar or coffee or whatever it is. But at least we can try to have a sense of humor about it and just kind of help be supportive of the fact that this is difficult. I don't know if that's helpful, Sarah, but it's just something that's helped me. So,
yeah. I want to say two things in response. One is that I resonate with what you're saying because when I did decide to give up all animal products and to eat a completely plant-based diet, it was 2002. I was living in Milton, Florida, and the vast majority of what I was able to eat at my job were steamed vegetables and some form of potato. Like French fries or hash browns. And this dude who was so mean to me, he would order every day a bacon cheeseburger. And like, I can still feel what it felt like to salivate. Like I was salivating. All I wanted every day for the first 6 months was a bacon cheeseburger. I wanted one so bad. Part of what kept me from trying one was because I just wanted to like show him that it wasn't a big deal and I was trying to be blasé. But anyway, that's the first thing. And the second thing is that, it's funny how, when CreatureKind as a project doesn't say, look, you have to give up all, like you have to go vegetarian, you have to go vegan. That's, we decided early on that was going to be a non-starter for a variety of reasons. And it's funny how, even just the idea of cutting back can seem like, oh, but it's totally, I mean, we eat a lot of us eat a lot of unintentionally, plant-based meals. I think many grad students live on hummus and carrots.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe that was just me, but yeah, thank you. It's helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Taliesin.
Yeah, well, sorry, let me just jump in. One last thing is that cheese is also addictive. And so I should have said that at the same time. And people who give up meat sometimes say, oh, I'll just eat cheese, and don't realize that pound for pound, the impact of cheese and beef are pretty similar. You don't usually eat a big 12-ounce piece of cheese for dinner, but nonetheless, pound for pound, the impact, I know, right? The impact is similar, so.
Abby, can you guide us through some of the questions that we had suggested for people to think about? If you have that in front of you.
I do. Yeah, so the first, let me just kind of remind you of what these questions are getting at, and then let's spend a couple minutes talking about them. So the first question is, what if the elective to offer vegan food choices became a requirement? What if another requirement was an audit of animal products? What would it take to think about an elective to reduce the amount of animal products served over the certification period by 30%? Or an elective that the food service provider would transition at least one animal product category to be 25% sourced from suppliers certified to be certified humane, a global animal partnership, or AWA? Or what would it mean to commit to purchasing at least 1% of animal products from farmers and ranchers who raise animals to the highest level of welfare? So those are some of the questions that we've kind of floated to you. It doesn't mean that any of the certification requirements are changing.
Right.
But there's some of the questions that Sarah King raised for us when we first sent her the requirements, and standards. And so we wondered what these questions raise for you.
Has anyone, does anyone have anyone from their food services department or program on this call? Or have they had any conversations with them about some of these ideas?
This is Laurel Kearns at Drew. I invited our chefs and reminded them of the great conversation we'd had when Sarah and David were visiting us. And I will say we are a school that is pretty much gone to a mandatory vegan option at every meal. So not all meals are vegan, though all meals that are paid for by anything related to the garden group or the environmental group are. And that's gone well, but the problem was getting two things we've faced. We are in a university, so we're embedded. And so the menus that they make up, you can't get a clear sense of the price for what an all vegan one would be. So often you're even either charged the same thing or even more than the meat, because they'll have sort of set, this is a set lunch. So we're trying to work on that. With one of our administrative assistants, we worked out a pretty good 3 different kinds of salad vegan meal. And so we're now trying to go back and say, you know, this would really help others if you just had, here's a vegan lunch menu or something like that. Because what our administrative assistant has said is that because she's doing it sort of a la carte, it's actually more expensive. Mm. So I can see in places with limited budgets that one of the first places you need to go to is whoever's providing your food. And we have a lot less influence and control in some ways. But I just thought I'd give that back. I do think that since Sarah and David, since CreatureKind met with the chefs, I tell you, anytime I go over into our dining services, I get greeted and they want to know if I've seen the latest vegan option, but they're doing really well in terms of every day for the whole university now having vegan. The other thing we found though is they tended to think of vegan in trendy terms maybe, so like jicama, and we wanted to say no, there's some, you know, it would be helpful. We could sell this better if we said, here's a simple menu that costs less than ordering the turkey. I mean, we gave up ordering any kind of mammal meat a long, long time ago. But, you know, it'd be easier to sell if we said, look, instead of ordering the turkey and tuna fish and chicken, the vegan option actually might save money too. Instead, it often looks more expensive because they're wanting, it's where the chefs are being creative. And so they're coming up with fancier dishes. And it's like, could we just also have some of the plainer kind of menus?
Lentil soup.
Right, exactly.
I want to, can I say one quick? Okay. Laurel, thank you. I think you brought up a really great point in terms of working with a food service provider, right? And we understand that I'm talking with a seminary in Vancouver that, or a Christian college in Vancouver, I'm sorry, that sends a student worker to Costco every week for their weekly meals, right? So there's that, and then there is the Drew and other seminaries like Drew who are embedded in a university that has a contract with a major food service provider, right? So, but there is a way to engage along that entire spectrum. And one of the things that one of the tools that we can offer is a partnership with a group called Farm Forward, who have been really helpful and supportive of our work. And they've been doing this work in the secular space with secular universities for a long time, and they are eager to walk alongside and to help us walk alongside conversations with food service providers at whatever level that is, whether it's the very controlling woman who's done the same food for the last 10 years and she doesn't want to be told to change anything, or it's the Aramark representative who's just signed a 3-year contract with the host school, right? So like there are ways to engage along the whole spectrum, and with all of those different iterations of what food service looks like at a seminary. And we're eager to have all those conversations.
Right.
Hi, this is Stan Saunders from Columbia Seminary.
Hi, Stan.
Hi.
And I wanted to mention that since you just mentioned Aramark, and so I was a little bit late getting on this call today. I always have a conflict on the last Wednesday of the month about this time. But so I might have missed it if you already mentioned Aramark, but that's who our school is contracted with. And so after the last conference call, when I reported kind of what we had talked about there and mentioned that y'all were looking to have our food service person be on this call if possible, our vice president for business said, "Well, why?" And then kind of went to the Aramark question and said, we have this contract with Aramark, and they kind of determine what the menu is going to be, and we have some broad choices within that, and then whoever's the person who's the food service manager on campus is somewhat limited then in terms of how they, what kinds of options they can put on the table, unless at least until the contract would be renegotiated. Is that in fact the case with groups like Aramark, and what's the best way to engage in that kind of a situation around these kinds of issues?
Yeah, so there are a couple of options. One, I'll say that what food service providers have told me is that they're very interested in serving their customers, right? So they're working within the limits of their contract. That may, specifically with sourcing, that will limit what they can do within any given contract. But I would say that as a school who is already in a food service contract, one of the things that would be amazing to do is to articulate as a school, even if you can't take immediate action, articulate as a body what it is, what your values are around food, right? So that when it comes time to renegotiate that contract with the food service provider, and they will want to receive, they will want our business again, you can do that from a values-driven place, right? So you have, the school's already gone through the work of articulating what it is that we want from what it is that we believe about food, what it is that we want in terms of animal welfare, and that can be specific. That can be as specific as we want these certified welfare products to be available, or more general if you're not in the kind of community that can go there. And you take that, you take that, and you make that part of the request for proposal process. I went to a webinar. It was a school in the Northeast. I can't remember which, but they did that. Their green team put together a food policy, sort of ideal checklist, value statement, and they used that as part of the RFP process. And they ended up signing with the same food service provider, but that food service provider had a little competition, right, which made them work a little harder. So it worked out in the benefit, for the benefit of the school.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful.
I try to be helpful.
Dan, we're with Aramark also, and
yes. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of room. And if you think about the ASHE schools, this one's associated with the Association for Sustainability in Higher Education, that's where we first went when we were a while ago trying to make some demands on our different food providers, because there's so many schools. I mean, so many of us have Aramark, and so many schools have worked with them. And they've got the experts in their network. So I found that really helped when I could go and say, look, we've talked to this school, and this is what Aramark's doing there, or something like that. And I must say that I had felt a much more antagonistic relationship with our food services. But because of Sarah and David's visit that we set up, we thought with just one of the chefs, everybody came. It was a great experience. We were all cracking each other up. That created so much goodwill.
Good.
Because Sarah is so good at understanding the position of the provider. I mean, I just thought you were so skilled at sort of saying, we want to hear from you. We want to know what the challenges are for you. So that just changed the dynamic. So I'd recommend any school getting CreatureKind to come and talk with your food services.
Thank you. I want to say 2 other really quick things, especially when it comes to the big food service providers. One is that, so the idea of an audit, one of the things that we suggest is that we know, like, we want to start from a place of, well, how much are we consuming, right? Like, let's figure that out. The numbers might scare us, or they might be actually pretty promising. But let's have the information. This is kind of like when I want to balance my checkbook. It's terrifying, but then when I do it, I sometimes have more money than I thought I did. But with a big food service provider, what I've found is that those, and even with some of the smaller food service providers, but with the contractors, they can rattle those numbers off the top of their head. They know how many gallons of milk they go through a week. They know how many pounds of chicken they know. So the audit process is actually greatly simplified. It's a little harder to try to do that when you're sending a student to Costco. Not impossible, but harder. And so an audit for somebody who uses an Aramark will probably look different than an audit who uses Food Worker. And then the second thing is that there are great programs that provide free chef trainings to help. And Aramark has done these, and the Drew chefs, I think, have participated in them. That help institutional chefs plan and then produce affordable plant-forward menus in a context that works for them. And those trainings are free, so that's a nice resource that you can offer your food service. You can offer that to your food service providers on your campus. You can say, well, you don't have to come up with this out of the top of your head. There are these resources available for you.
Great. I want to be mindful of the time and leave plenty of time for the report from Pacific Lutheran, but is there any additional thoughts or comments?
Can I ask Ann a question?
Yes.
Sorry, can I ask a question? Just, what do you have a response that you give to people who are sort of big into the paleo diet?
I think we can be really good friends with people who are paleo, because they are, at least from what I understand. So I do CrossFit now, so I have a lot of paleo friends, more than I've ever had before in my life. And a lot of folks who are into that kind of sort of eating or diet, they want clean food, right? And factory farm food is not clean, like by any stretch of the imagination. So if we start from that place of agreement, then we can go from there.
Good. As has been mentioned already, CreatureKind and GSI are all about meeting each school where you are. And so we're not looking at changing any of the certification standards that you have signed on to do, but do look at those questions that are offered for you to think about as we each, in our own way, recognize our growing edges. Because we're all over the map as far as where we are on all of these focus areas. But in the area of food services, what are the growing edges? And as you look into your certification standards, yes, there are requirements, and yes, there are electives. And then there's that last little asterisk that says other, as developed by the seminary in consultation with GSI staff. So if there's some of the suggestions that have been made of some possible growing edges that you'd like to consider as a possible elective, talk to Abby or myself, and let's continue to do a little bit better. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much for having me.
now we have a report from Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary, and Ella is
Yes.
with us from PLTS.
Mhm.
They have done a remarkable job with their green team, particularly in engaging their student leadership. So Ella, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how things are going at PLTS?
All right. Well, my name is Ella Vandervlucht, and I am one of the students that are on the student leadership. And first of all, we are changing our name from Green Team to Green Justice, hyphenated Green Justice Team, because our seminary is undergoing a curriculum change. So the incoming students from this fall are under a new curriculum, and all the classes are incorporating a focus on the nexus of earth, class, race, and gender. So, and then social justice is very important. We're in Berkeley, so that's just part of who we are. And so we are trying to emphasize everything that we're doing with our action plan, and the green team has to do with environmental justice. So our Green Justice team is led by 3 students in conjunction with a faculty member. And so I'm new to the Green Justice team. I started last spring semester. We had a retreat with the students, all the faculty and staff members that are part of the team. And then this fall semester, I and one other student worked with our faculty advisor, I guess, to get another student on board, a new incoming student. So I'll be graduating, and then next year there'll be another new student on the team. But the faculty have also found a grant so that the student leaders get a stipend. It's not a whole lot if you break it down like hourly, how much we're working on this, but it helps. And, it's a little bit more motivation to find new members and stuff as well. So right now we are in the process of implementing our action plan. We finalized it all last spring. And in the creation of the action plan, we had input from the community. So as far as the electives were concerned, we put a bunch of poster boards up around campus, giving people options, vote, what do you want us to do as a community? And then last spring, we sent out copies of the action plan. But this fall, we're realizing that no one looked at them, and people don't remember what they voted for, because the action plan is really long, very detailed. We have all the information on, okay, we're going to do this in spring of 2019 and this, next year. And this is a requirement, this is an elective, and the seminary community doesn't need all those details. And we also had an occasion where we were looking at, the coffee, we always have coffee out for everyone to drink. And this coffee, we need to find out if it's fair trade or not. So we went to the coffee supply, the person who's in charge of ordering that, and then realized, we're coming off as the green police. And that's something that we don't want to be. So our process that we're doing right now is we're calling it onboarding, getting buy-in from the community again on what we are doing. You can get your stuff if you, okay. The campus is very full right now. But we are revising our action plan into a community version that we're sharing with everyone. And we're going to meet in a few weeks with the executive admin committee, and then we're meeting with the staff of the seminary, and then we are setting up a meeting and a way to communicate with the students again, what is in our action plan and what things there are to be excited about, just to help everyone have buy-in and look forward to the changes that we want to implement, so that it's not like the green police going, oh no, we have to stop doing things that we've been doing. Another aspect of our seminary is part of a larger university. So we have, and the university is on a different campus in another city hours away in California. So on our Green Justice team, there are faculty and staff from the university on our team who are also part of the university's sustainability group. I don't know much about what they're doing, but that helps. So the university's doing stuff as well. And the last time we all met was in a retreat last March, going over the finalizing the action plan. And is there anything else you want to hear about?
Thanks, Ella.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Wonder if there's any comments from any of the other Green Team members in the cohort as to this report.
Yeah.
I love the name, Green Justice Team.
That's awesome, by the way, everything you're doing. And I just wanted to let you know something we did in case it's helpful. We actually came together and created an eco-justice pledge. And the pledge was something that we sort of presented to the community in a couple of different places and opportunities. And it was an opportunity, it was like based on the ideas of consumption and waste, just broken down into those two wide, broad categories. And it was a combination of individual habits and things that the community could do and things that people could do with congregations. So sort of a mix.
Yeah.
And the idea was not that everybody had to sign up and pledge to every single thing on the list. It was more just, I pledged to try to reduce my consumption, and I pledged to try to be mindful of and reduce my waste. And it was just a sort of general approach, like what's our goal here, our vision? And anyway, just framing all of the different things, the coffee station, the fair trade, under the umbrella or on the foundation of this eco-justice pledge that was founded in our spiritual values and goals, I think helped it not feel like the green police. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We were talking about doing something like that and having a mission statement or something along those lines. But that sounds good. And you've had good success with that so far?
The admissions loved it, and they started handing it out to every incoming class and just offering it as just a way of being mindful of, this is sort of our community's ethos around this. And like I said, it was not like everybody is forced to sign up for everything on there, but it just sort of created some space to think about these things without sort of a shared goal space, without feeling like you're imposing something. So I think it had the desired effect.
Yeah.
And that's Taliesin at BU?
Yeah. Hi. I should, because I don't have my camera, I should always say when it's me. Sorry about that.
And Laurel Kearns at Drew can tell us probably. Drew has a similar eco pledge. You're on mute, Laurel.
Actually, we're busy here taking notes. Our pledge has been part of the Green Ribbon graduation pledge.
Right.
About the values that students will take from here. And we get a tremendous sign-up rate for that because now everybody wants to be seen with their green ribbon because that's what it means sort of to be at Drew. The noise you just heard in the background is I have a bird clock.
I was going to say, I know what time it is.
Right, but it's not. It's fast so that I get, worried. I got to be somewhere.
Wait, the bird is chirping.
But certainly our students had suggested that at orientation, we have a kind of pledge. I'm looking at our student leader here. Anything you want to say, Kaylin?
I mean, we talked about it to try to find a way of getting that buy-in. and we're still kind of in the process of how to introduce it. We were hoping to launch something this past orientation, but timing ran out. But we got a good group of incoming students that are definitely eco-green minded. So I like being able to take all the notes for how we can implement this for the future incoming classes.
Great.
And I'm happy to share that, by the way, Laurel, or anybody. I'm happy to share with the GSI our version in case it's useful for others when you're kind of designing one. It's possibly out of date, but this was a while ago. But I'm very happy if that's helpful.
That would be great. If you could send it to the director at Green Seminary's email, and we can share it through email or however, Facebook group.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be awesome. Any other questions or comments for Ella?
Hi, this is Liz at Garrett, and this is Josh, one of our new student leaders for our green team here. Ella, I'm really interested in the idea of a retreat, and I'm wondering if you could just speak a little bit more about what that looked like, what you did, who's there, things like that.
Yeah, it was a day-long, it was a day, yeah, a day on campus. It was on a Saturday, so it didn't conflict with class because most of the people involved were either students or faculty. And we were debating whether or not to have it in person, because for the people from our Thousand Oaks campus to come up to Berkeley, they would have to fly. And we're like, well, then we're, you know, all the effects from flying, you know, the environment. But we decided in the end, we wanted to be in person just because we don't ever see each other. And so we, the students, the student group that had been the student leaders, I was just kind of observing to step in as a student leader for the next year. We worked with our faculty advisor to present what we had so far from the audit and for the action plan. And then we broke down into groups and worked on different parts of that. We were writing the action plan. That was the purpose of the retreat. So we broke down into different groups according to different people's expertise. The, you know, religion faculty who does eco, you know, eco-theology and liturgy was working at the worship parts of the action plan. Our guy who's on the service buildings and grounds, he was looking at the buildings and grounds part of the action plan. So we broke into little groups and then came back together and we ate together and we had some little devotion together, but it was mainly just to work on the action plan. And it was really good, very productive. So, and nice to, because as a student, I didn't know, as a new student on the team, I didn't know who all was on the team. So it was a chance for everyone to get to know each other and see each other, put names to faces and so forth.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ella. And thanks for all the good work that PLTS is doing.
Yeah.
Now we've kind of got a time where we can go around and see if anybody has any announcements. And I do have one, but want to see if anybody else has any announcements or issues to bring up to the group. Who will be coming to Denver for AARSBL? I see that hand, Laurel Kearns. And Abby and I will both be there. And I think she mentioned earlier in the call that Monday morning at 7:15 until 8:45, GSI will have a continental breakfast for any of you and others who might be curious about GSI to come together and meet actually with each other in the same room and share ideas and build this network that is GSI. So last year we got together at 7:45 to 8:45 and it just wasn't enough time. But there are important sessions that we want people to be able to attend that start at 9. So we will start at 7:15 until 8:45, but we will have continental breakfast.
And that's a great thing to spread, because every year people show up with their coffee that they bought on the way and then go, oh, there's food here. And it's like, there's food every year, but we need to get that word out that, you know, you don't have to spend the time finding food on your way at that hour. Come and there's coffee and things to eat and good people to talk to.
Yep.
Right.
So in the next week, you'll all be receiving an official invitation. The invitation went out in the most recent e-newsletter, but we'll send a cohort-specific invitation to all of you, and that does include a little note about the continental breakfast, including the coffee. Will and I will also both be at Parliament of World Religions in Toronto, and so if any of you will be there, I'd love to gather with some of you, and perhaps Laurel too, but I don't want to make assumptions about her time. So let's be in touch about that as well.
Okay, we want to be respectful of your time, but I do need to bring this group up to speed on an announcement I need to make. And of course, I have mixed feelings about it, but after much prayer and discernment with my family and private conversation with my dear friend and colleague, Abby, I am realizing that I need to step down from the co-director position of Green Seminary Initiative. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually a source of delight that my husband and I are developing our farm into what we envision will be a place of healing and spiritual renewal. So as a small retreat center, but obviously a place for family and friends, of which you are a part, can come and enjoy together as we recognize that the source of our relationship with God and each other begins with the soil, and ways to encourage local economies from that relationship. So also there is a congregation in that part of Texas, I'm in North Texas, north of Dallas, that affirms that call as a non-traditional ministry. And on Sunday, November 4th, I will be ordained to the gospel ministry with Sister Grove Farm as our home base. So I am grateful to Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary for leading me to this calling and leading me to Drew Theological School, which led me to Laurel Kearns and others and all of you. I'm not going to go away. I'm going to continue to be an ambassador and champion of Green Seminary Initiative, but I'm very satisfied and grateful to have been in this particular role at this particular time for the Green Seminary Initiative, because in the last 3 years, we've really been able to launch this certification program and help you take these important next steps to equip religious leaders to lead their congregations and areas of ministry to make the important steps that need to be taken at this critical time. So thank you, and thank you to Abby, who I am confident in and grateful to for her leadership. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you and congratulations.
Go ahead.
I feel we should all unmute and clap.
Yes.
Oh.
I just want to say, as one of the co-founders of the Green Seminary Initiative, to have Sarah discover the Green Seminary Initiative online, which was a lot of our early existence, was just trying to have the materials out there for people. Have her come to Drew and then be part of this flourishing and expansion of the Green Seminary Initiative is, my gratitude just knows no bounds. but also your very presence, that journey you just identified, tells us how important the Green Seminary Initiative is for other students and other places to find that they're not alone, that there are, you know, materials there to help them think. So my, just thank you so much for all you've given to us. And of course, the wonderful sweetness of it was that now Austin is part of the certification program. So Sarah's calling, you know, while she was there also has come full circle in some ways in that sense. So just thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Laurel. Okay, well, with that, this call has been recorded and will be shared with each of you and with each of the other members of your green team. We will be having a November call, the fourth Wednesday of November, which is the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. So no, it's not Thanksgiving week, but it's the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. And we're going to shift into the next focus area of the standards, which is public leadership. Have not identified yet our mentor for that call, but we've got some good names that that we're considering, and so we look forward to having that important conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.